pleasure to welcome Bill Fleenor back to our fellowship, this time to share some of his life journey. Bill left Norborne, Missouri at the age of 12 to move to the San Francisco Bay Area with his parents. He never completed high school, but at age 20 was inspired to pursue a full-time professional student career. After 13 years of college with several degrees in the sciences, concluding with a PhD in animal physiology, Bill was appointed an associate professor in animal sciences at the University of Arizona. While retired in 1999, he and Kimberly moved full-time to their home in Mapleton, spending a year remodeling their house, and Kimberly started the Silver Lining Boutique. During that time, Bill became interested in generating his own electrical energy, so he designed and installed a complete off-the-grid system at his home, which he can elaborate on if he wishes. After serving on the board of Central Lincoln PUD for 6 years, Bill was Lane County Commissioner for 4 years. He certainly gives a lot of his time and energy tithing, during which time he started practicing hot yoga in 2008 at Bikram's College of India in Eugene. He liked it so much he became a teacher in 2012 and started his own home studio. After furthering his yoga training in Thailand, he and his business partner built a larger hot yoga facility called StudioFlorence.com, which is located on the corner of Quince and Highway 126. At the same time, they opened a real estate agency, Hybrid Real Estate, which is co-located with the studio. Bill is now currently happily practicing hot yoga and selling real estate. Please welcome Bill Fleenor.
Thank you so much for hosting me today. I'd like to give my appreciation to Sally for officiating and certainly talking about tithing. As I approach my golden years, tithing is becoming much more on my mind, particularly as it relates to my empathy and compassion for others who lack and are hurting. Empathy was something that as a young man I had no understanding. But as I grow older and wiser, empathy becomes a much more important part of my life. And yoga seems to be bringing much more of that out. We'll talk about yoga in a few minutes. What I'd like to do right now, as I've always done in the past, is just drink the audience in as you drink me in. And we basically have a communion. So we'll take about 15 seconds and just drink each other in, appreciate each other. Thank you. It was wonderful. Ruth indicated that I've had a very interesting journey. And I don't know if you read Tom Brokaw's statement in the parade this morning, where he felt that he was the luckiest man in the world. I feel the same way. Although I've had a lot of hardship in my life, a lot of success, a lot of wonderfulness. So instead of dwelling upon the hardships, I try to focus on all of the wonderful things that has been provided me. And I'm not a religious man. I believe that good things are provided to people who try. And as trying, people reach out to you. And it's a reciprocating relationship. So as we grow, we interact with other people, other life forms, and I mean not spiritually, but the other life that surrounds us on our planet, our ecosystem, very important, because that sustains our life. But that's an entire different subject. What I'd like to do right now is ask, what do you think yoga is? And I'd like to get a response from the audience here. What do you think yoga is? is the question. Does anyone have any definition or ideas about it that would like to share before I start talking about what I believe yoga is? I'd like to hear a little bit about what you think it is.
I would say it's a balancing of your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit. They're all working together in unison to bring, relaxation and health to the body and the mind and the spirit.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's religious?
No. Spiritual, I would say. More spiritual.
Spiritual. Any other definitions? Yes.
To me, I think I consider it a combination of meditation and body relaxation,
Balance? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it's a way of bringing us back to who we are as nature,
Hmm.
and that it's all about energetic balance, external, internal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Others? Unity. Like Unitarian. Unification. Yes.
I was gonna say, I think that's the meaning of union, yoke of community with the creation, whatever way you want to call that.
Mm-hmm. So a yoking together, which is an interpretation by a English scholar of Sanskrit back in the middle 1800s. He came up with the concept that yoga actually means yoking of two oxen together. Again, this is an interpretation in 1856 by an English scholar, a white male English scholar. As most of you know, yoga has been around for a long, long time. The indication of when yoga started can be found in the Upanishads about 5,000 years ago. It predates Buddhism. And basically yoga started out as a practical way of living a healthy life. It's kind of like us brushing our teeth every day. There were certain philosophies and principles that were handed down from father to son to father to son for centuries. And it was basically how to live a healthy, happy, productive life originally. Then it became a little distorted. Just after Buddhism, where yogis found that they needed to do something more. So they became ascetics, and they practiced self-deprivation, where they deprived themselves of everything: food, shelter, clothing. They went up to caves in the mountains, and they basically just deprived themselves in order to reach samadhi. Now, samadhi is a Sanskrit term for enlightenment. The definition of enlightenment, as you try to drill down, becomes more and more vague. There are so many different parts to enlightenment, but for several thousand years, it was self-deprivation that drove yogis toward this practice. And then 1 century, a yogi said, "Why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. It's not really helping us achieve enlightenment." So the practice started evolving about 2,000 years ago into a multidisciplinary track with 8 branches, any one of which, theoretically, you will achieve samadhi, enlightenment. One of these branches happens to be asana. Asana is the very first physical posture that yogis have used. That is the lotus position for meditation. For over 1,000 years, the Lotus position was the only asana that was practiced. Well, again, there was an epiphany by a yogi that said, you know, you don't really just have to sit here and meditate for days, weeks, months on end. You can actually get up and move around. It's been a very slow evolutionary process from self-deprivation to, hey, you can actually live a fairly decent life, be happy, move around, and practice other types of asanas. Well, if you go back into the ancient literature, it is said to have discovered over 740,000 asanas, postures, movements, however slight, 740,000 of them. Over the years, yogis have decided, you know, it's not really practical to try to practice 740,000 asanas. So they decided, let's distill it down. So we're now down to about 90 some asanas that are very well characterized. Some of the practices now have distilled it down even further to where we are practicing 30, 25, 26 asanas in a given series. So yoga over the years has evolved. The interpretation of what yoga is now under debate by some scholars back in Britain, but they are not white British archaeologists. They are from India, and they are studying Sanskrit in the interpretations of what was originally thought yoga to be. So originally, as I said, yoga was considered yoking two oxen together. The oxen symbolically was our mind and body, our spirit, our life. All of these things were yoked together, which makes me feel a little tense. I don't like being yoked. It just does not feel comfortable. So in my life, about 6 months ago when I was in Thailand, taking a 500-hour class for my 500-hour certification, we had a scholar from a prestigious school in Britain studying Sanskrit, and he was saying, you know, we're starting to believe that yoga, as defined by the ancient practitioners, was more of a subtle concept of a bow and an arrow, where the arrow was the intention of the archer. And he went into an elaboration about how that really has evolved the thinking about what yoga really is. So it is constantly evolving, and it's evolving faster and faster. So about 150 years ago, another yogi brilliantly decided, you know, we can actually achieve samadhi by just using common sense. Instead of going through all of these elaborate rituals, chanting, visualizing gods of all denominations. So our evolution is getting faster and faster and more specified as to there is really many paths to what they say samadhi, which I would like to now define as self-actualization, self-realization. Because the term samadhi had a spiritual connotation, which is now evolving more into what we would consider, in looking at Eckhart Tolle's book about here and now, self-realization and self-actualization is becoming mindful of your presence in the state of now. So when I'm practicing my hot yoga, or any yoga, what we're trying to do is quiet our mind and become present, mindful of what we are doing. not thinking of the past and not projecting into the future. We are just at peace with ourselves now. And that is the beauty of this practice, is that for an hour and a half, my practice is 90 minutes a day. At the end of that 90 minutes, I am comfortable in my skin. Who I am, what I am comfortable. And to me, that is samadhi. For that brief period of time. And then, over time, I have learned to take that feeling with me out the door. And ever so slightly, over the last 8 years, I have been taking larger chunks of that time and using it outside of the room, off the mat. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm in samadhi most of the day. And it is just brilliant. It feels wonderful. It is so calming and relaxing. And to me, that is the payoff. The hard work, the discipline, practicing the asanas, the payoff is the 23 hours of the rest of the day, I am feeling who I should feel, me, now. Hot yoga. Has anyone practiced hot yoga here? It's practiced in a hot room. I call it a warm room actually, because some practitioners practice in a much hotter room. Bikram College of India practices hot yoga in a room of 107 degrees for 90 minutes. And you have a 2-minute break in the middle, but the other 88 minutes you are practicing. My practice consists of 26 double sets of asanas, one breathing exercise spread out over 90 minutes in a 100-degree heated room. Why 100? As you know, our body temperature is 98.7 degrees. So we're 1.3 degrees above your body temperature. So when you say hot, it's kind of relative. Our bodies are almost 100 degrees. So at 100 degrees, I call that the magic spot. Things start moving. You loosen up. Your tendons and ligaments start flowing easier. Your heart is pumping. There's a little stress being pushed down on you from the heat, which typically starts activating your fight or flight syndrome. Because I want to leave. It's hot. So what we do is we practice breathing through the nose, not the mouth. If you breathe through the mouth in 100-degree temperature, you activate your adrenal glands, which then shoots cortisol out, and you get all stressed out. So breathing through the nose, in and out, rhythmically, in the hot room, teaches you to deal with stress. So besides just good for your physical being, the heat, the intensity of the asanas, the taming of the adrenal cortex reduces the level of stress in your life. This is what it's all about, is learning how to deal with stress in a positive manner. So there are so many levels to this practice that I keep discovering as I go deeper and deeper into it, that every day that I practice is a brand new practice. So that is why we call it beginner yoga. It's never intermediate, there's never an advanced, it's always beginning yoga. Everyone is invited, no matter what your condition in life, how big you are, how little, how stretchy, how bendy, everyone is welcome. It's a wonderful opportunity to get connected with yourself. We practice in front of a mirror, by the way. It's the only yoga that is practiced in front of a mirror. This is really intense. For the first 2 years, I saw my father looking back at me. That was really intimidating. until I pushed past that. So there are so many things that we come to grips with as we're standing there virtually naked, because it's hot, so you don't want to wear a lot of clothes, and you are exposed to yourself. And that is when the process works. The heat magically starts moving the fluids through your body. You're perspiring. You're drinking lots of water. Remember, we like to drink lots of water. You want to drink water. You are thirsty. So there's a lot of hydraulics going on in the practice. I've lost up to 4 pounds of body weight in one practice. That's how much perspiration. But overall, and to finalize, yoga to me is a journey that never ends. I have no expectation of what is going to happen. I have no judgment of myself. And I am just happy and delighted to have the opportunity to do this. I wish I knew then what I know now. I would have started this many, many years ago, but the fact that I'm doing it now has changed my life, and I love teaching it, and I see the transformation in other people, and that is so heartwarming to me. My teaching is more of, I'm a guide, and I help people transition through the first few awkward sessions. And then overall, my goal is to get them out of the studio and practicing on their own, because it's all about self-practice. So, are there any questions before I conclude? Yes?
Did you bring any handout sheets with your information, your address, your phone number, you know, the price and so on?
I was thinking about that, but I did not want to turn this into a marketing.
Okay.
I felt this is more of a, I don't want to say a church, but it's more of a gathering of people,
Sure.
and it's not a commercial appeal for customers. But you can go to my website, studioflorence.com.
Studio Florence?
.com.
Okay.
Yes, and there's lots of information there. Yes.
Did you find a difference in Thailand approach versus what you're trying to do now?
I started with the Bikram College of India in Eugene when I was county commissioner in 2008, when all of the lawsuits were filed against us. And I was rather stressed out, and I just happened to wander in, not knowing what this was about, and started taking classes. Bikram is a medical doctor from India who discovered the 26 asana sequence and put it in a hot room and brought it to America. He's very dictatorial, he's misogynistic, but that's what I needed. I needed that discipline, and he just beat the pulp out of me. And that's, after a hard day of being sued, that's exactly what you needed. So after 4 years of practicing the Bikram technique, I was just about ready to go to a Bikram training certification, which is 6 weeks in Hollywood for about $15,000. The day that I was applying, I heard about another training in Costa Rica by a gal by the name of Gabrielle Riaz, who is now considered the hot yoga doctor. She is a medically trained dentist, and she offered an alternative to this dictatorial, misogynistic approach. So I went down to Costa Rica for a 200-hour training, 4 weeks, really intense. I was 62. I was the oldest person in the class, needless to say. The average age was about 24. 16 people, 14 women, 2 men. I was the oldest person. But I kept up. I was just amazed that I was able to not only keep up with the asanas, but also the intense training, because I had not been to school for many, many decades. So she teaches a whole different approach based upon Western anatomy and physiology versus Bikram, who comes from India, was trained in India as a doctor. So he wasn't really practicing what I would call true scientific physiology and anatomy. So my practice is based upon science, anatomy, physiology, proper breathing techniques, and certainly not misogynistic. I treat women, I love women, they are the brilliant, great, smart creatures. I just think you need to be promoted up and the men we need to set down. We've had enough time on the stage. Did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Tom.
What's the point of being in a room that's so hot?
The heat. The heat, first of all, helps relax your muscles, your tendons and ligaments. It also bears down on you and creates more pressure and stress. That pressure and stress you manage through proper breathing. So you are learning how to manage stress through acknowledgement that there is stress, and second, how to get through it, and that is through proper breathing. So in your everyday life, when you have stress, back off and just breathe. It changes your entire attitude immediately. It calms everything down. And this is something that I never realized was part of the practice. But managing stress comes from the heat bearing down on you as you're doing these one-legged balancing asanas that are just incredibly beautiful but incredibly difficult to do. And you are thinking, oh my God, this is brilliant, but I am really sweating. And this is really hard. Some of them are so hard that you can't even see because you're sweating so much. But then you just deal with it. So that's the beauty of it, is that you're imposing this high level of stress upon yourself that is beneficial, not detrimental. Yes?
When I think of hot yoga, I think of something that I can't keep up with. It seems to me like what I've thought of in my mind as hot yoga is people that are in really great shape, like 21-year-olds going, like feet up, head thrown. Is it like that, or is it like you can go your pace and do your get into that?
Of course, it's been westernized. You know, there are magazines with beautiful, scantily clad yoginis doing incredible postures. That's not what this is about. What it's about is each individual trying to attain self-actualization. So when you come into the room, you'll notice, first of all, you're looking at yourself. A lot of people close their eyes at the beginning. It's really hard to deal with looking at yourself in your eyes while you're practicing. So it takes anywhere from the first day to several years just to deal with looking at yourself, your body. But you become so focused on yourself that you can't see anybody else. It matters not who's there or how close they are, because you are centered on yourself. It's all about self-improvement, using group energy. It's amazing when everyone is working together. You can just feel the energy coming together, and it propels people, lifting them up. My hairs are standing up right now. It's just such a wonderful experience to see that. So we have people who are very overweight, major medical conditions, and they're coming in, and we're working with them very slowly, over time. You see this remarkable transformation. And I don't say, I'm going to cure you of this, I'm going to cure you of this, I'm going to make you this. No, you do that yourself. It's all about you, and it's all about what you want to do. Any other questions before I'm booted off the stage? Thank you all for allowing me to be here, and I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to have served the community in so many positions, and I'm also grateful for not being in politics right now.